There is a war. It's happening now. It will decide the fate of humanity. The time to choose sides has come. We are the resistance. We are the info war.
Welcome to the InfoWars Nightly News. It is Friday, October 10th, 2014, and I'm Leanne McAdoo. Here are tonight's top stories.
Tonight, what's happening to potential Ebola victims on America's border? Then, recent shootings stoke conflict in Ferguson, and the NSA's monopoly on information. That's next on the InfoWars Nightly News.
The NSA is there to kill freedom. The NSA is there to bring in Agenda 21. The NSA is there with these giant computer programs.
A former Border Patrol agent has come forward to say that the CDC is working with Border Patrol authorities as well as the DHS to disappear potential Ebola victims who are attempting to cross the border into the United States.
This Center for Disease Control and Prevention is in charge of the screening with the U.S. Public Health Service. I've never seen the CDC or U.S. Public Health Service work together with the Border Patrol at the border, ever. The agents are telling us that they're seeing some people that are obviously sick with shivering type illnesses, with possibly dehydrating illnesses like diarrhea and vomiting. But those people are disappearing. We don't know what they have, where they're going, where they're taking them. Surely they're being quarantined somewhere. We just don't know where. And even the agents don't know what the diagnosis is of these illnesses.
Now, that interview with Taylor, who is a 27-year Border Patrol veteran, actually took place in July, but coming up in the extended overdrive version of the show tonight for all of you Prison Planet subscribers, Paul Joseph Watson sits down and interviews Zach Taylor for an extended interview. But InfoWars has separately confirmed through additional sources that this process was ongoing even up until and through the aftermath of America's first case of Ebola, which occurred in Dallas just last week. Now, Dr. Edward Group spoke to senior Border Patrol sources at a recent medical conference who told him that teams of officials in hazmat suits and vans were involved in the operation. And here is Dr. Group speaking with Alex Jones on the Alex Jones Show today.
Go through what the Border Patrol told you first, what these senior agents told you, and then get into the whole list.
Well, what I was shown a video of the guy that was talking about what's going on down at the border, and these guys know and have connections down there. And what they're saying is that people are that anybody with Ebola-like symptoms.
They were confirming, Taylor.
They were confirming that never before has the CDC and the National Institute of Health worked so closely with Border Patrol, and that they were down there grabbing individuals and putting them in vans and taking them to a quarantine location. And at that location, basically nobody knows where they were taking them to. Nobody knows what they're doing with them. I mean, are they trying experimental vaccines on them? Are they, taking their blood? Are they, who knows what's going on?
And we were initially called fear mongers for saying this, but now, yes, U.S. officials are warning that indeed Ebola could come into the U.S. through the open southern border. This is the head of the U.S. Southern Command, and it's the branch of the U.S. military that's responsible for all U.S. military activities in South America and Central America. And he says there is no way that we can keep Ebola in West Africa.
If Ebola breaks out in Haiti or in Central America, I think it is literally Katie bar the door in terms of the mass migration of Central Americans into the United States. 68,000 children essentially wandered across our border this year. They get into the country pretty much unimpeded. So these populations will move to either run away from Ebola, or if they have been or in the fear of having been infected, to get to the United States, will be taken care of.
So that was the head of the U.S. Southern Command saying this is indeed a very serious issue. But now we've got a CDC that refuses to shut down flights. It doesn't recommend securing the border. Meanwhile, a man was pulled off a U.S. Airways flight for simply making a joke that he had Ebola. And of course, they entered in hazmat suits to remove this man. He's unidentified as of the time of this report, and he reportedly yelled, "I have Ebola, and you are all screwed." And he is also thought to have shouted, "I've been to Africa," while coughing loudly. Obviously, he's making a very poor joke, but as you can see in the video, agents enter this plane in hazmat suits, full-on hazmat suits. The other passengers are giggling sort of nervously as they all record the incident. And after they took this man off of the plane, the rest of the passengers were held on that plane for 2 hours while he was inspected, and he was eventually given the all clear. But obviously this was clearly an overreaction to what was a very bad joke by this person, but it demonstrates how seriously some countries are taking this Ebola outbreak, even as we're dealing with a president here and a lackluster response from the administration. Now, Obama was speaking in a video message to residents of the Ebola-stricken nations in West Africa, and he was doling out advice on how residents can avoid the disease, saying, "You cannot get it through casual contact, like sitting next to someone on a bus." Now, this is completely contradictory to what the Centers for Disease Control is saying, and obviously those men entering the plane in hazmat suits, what they're saying, advising Americans who travel to the Ebola-stricken nations to avoid public transportation. In addition to telling travelers who begin to exhibit possible Ebola symptoms to avoid public transportation, the CDC says a person may contract Ebola if he or she spends a long amount of time within 3 feet of a person who is sick with Ebola. So obviously, these are some pretty ridiculous contradictions here. They're saying it's not airborne. You can't get it by sitting next to someone on the bus or by sitting next to someone on a plane. And then meanwhile, the CDC is putting this message out that indeed, you can possibly get Ebola just by sitting next to someone for an extended period of time. And of course, they're telling everyone it's perfectly safe. Go ahead and get on that plane and fly with them while they are themselves entering the plane in full-on hazmat suits. Now, even though, once again, we recalled conspiracy theorists for reporting on the fact that thousands of coffin liners were purchased by the CDC years ago and they were being stored in Madison, Georgia, now the CDC has come out. They found a use for all those coffin liners. The CDC has mandated hermetically sealed caskets for Ebola victims. A Yahoo News report reveals how the CDC is instructing funeral homes that remains should be cremated or buried promptly in a hermetically sealed casket, which must be secure against the escape of microorganisms, and they want to make sure it has valid documentation for being airtight. And of course, this is in addition to the CDC issuing a 3-page list of recommendations which warned funeral home workers not to carry out autopsies or to embalm corpses. And of course, we broke that here just days after that first Ebola victim was announced in Dallas. So isn't it convenient that they had already had purchased all of these coffin liners? Very, very convenient. They found a use for them. Now it'll just be interesting to see what sort of a use they have for those really large ammo purchases that they really didn't have a very good and valid explanation for. Now, coming up, more violence is expected in Ferguson over the weekend. As organizers in Ferguson, Missouri are calling for a weekend of resistance, the state is once again activating the militarized police. Will we see some more confrontation?
DNA Force. When cells become toxic, they die early and aging sets in. DNA Force. No one has put together a formula that focuses directly on brain health, nerve growth factors, and optimizing your cellular energy at the same time. Just one of the key compounds, BioPQQ, is backed by major clinical studies. DNA Force. We now have the synergistic solution. Secure your DNA Force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139. DNA Force. The globalist social engineers are not just targeting us with propaganda. They are manipulating our genetics. We are being targeted at every level by estrogen mimickers that lower our testosterone and other hormones and natural compounds that the body needs. After consulting top doctors, nutritionists, pharmacists, and others, we have developed what I believe is the ultimate non-GMO organic super male vitality formula sourced from powerful organic herbs and then concentrated for maximum potency. Super Male Vitality was developed to activate your body's own natural processes instead of using synthetic chemicals. Super Male Vitality by InfoWars Life is so powerful that I only take half the recommended dose. For a limited time, we are offering 15% off Super Male Vitality at InfoWarsLife.com to introduce you to this powerful supplement. Visit InfoWarsLife.com today to secure your Super Male Vitality. InfoWarsLife.com.